Is it expensive to live in Ivory Coast or not? Welcome to this channel. It's your friend Boys Monarchs again. I hope you guys are doing well. Today I'm going to answer a question that someone asked me privately, and he asked me if it's expensive to live in Ivory Coast or not. I will say yes and no. First of all, let's start by yes. Yes, it's expensive depending on where you're living. Okay, depending on where you're living. First of all, Ivory Coast is divided into I think three categories: the very poor, the average, and the rich. The average can live in this type of neighborhood where I'm working right now. Those are the average people. Okay, those are the people who are having like a regular job, who just get paid paycheck by paycheck. But there are other places that people who are rich, like if you go there, it's pretty quiet than here, and there are no lot of people there. There are nice buildings and all. You know what I'm talking about. So depending on where you're living, for example, if you live in Abidjan, and depending on the neighborhood, your expenditure will change. For example, if you live in Cocody, especially Cocody, Rivera, you will, if you want to spend if you want to rent a house, or if you want to rent an apartment, or if you want to rent just a small studio, the minimum is 70,000. Okay, the minimum that you can rent an apartment in Cocody Rivera is 70,000. Like a good not apartment, a good studio, like one BHK, just only you, the kitchen, and the bathroom. That's what you can rent in Cocody Rivera here. But the same thing you can have for 50K in other area. But what I need to say is, either you are in Cocody or you are in other area of Abidjan, you will spend a lot of money, because first of all, in Abidjan, the transportation, okay, if you don't have a car, you have to spend in public transport. In public transport, oh my gosh, it's expensive. For an Ivorian or a person who know things about Ivory Coast, the public transport is expensive. And if you have a car, to buy petrol, to fill your tank and all, is not easy. Petrol price goes up all the time. And the food also, the food are increased. You know, the recession's coming, and everything is getting expensive. So if you live in Abidjan, I would say it's expensive. Yeah, so you have to manage and be in Abidjan. But if you're coming from abroad, for example, if you're coming from like European countries, or even if you're coming from Asian country, right, it can be quite affordable, because someone who's living in Mumbai compared to Abidjan is okay, right? You can live okay here in a good house, in a good apartment. But someone who's living in a country where the living standard is lower than Ivory Coast, if you come to Abidjan, you will suffer. So that's how I can explain this situation. Abidjan is expensive. Yeah, it's not a cheap place. That one you have to be aware of that, because don't say, oh, it's an African country, it's not that expensive. No, it's expensive. It's expensive. So the second way is, it's not expensive because if you don't live in a capital city, if you don't live in a metropole, it's not expensive. Why it's not expensive? Because in other place, in other city in Abidjan, renting is cheap, transportation is cheap. Even if you have car, even the petrol is the same price as in Abidjan here, but you don't drive too far. It's not that expensive. The food is affordable. Everything is affordable, right? Everything is affordable. But once you live in Abidjan here, everyone who's going to take something to actually come to Abidjan will make it expensive, will make it like really expensive. So that's what I can say regarding Ivory Coast. If you're coming from outside, like if you are a foreigner and you want to settle in Abidjan, probably depending on where you're coming from, it won't be expensive for you. But obviously, if you come to a new country, you won't accept to go to a neighborhood that is like, is bizarre, right? At least you will settle for just a minimum of comfort, right? Even though you don't want to live high standard, but the minimum can be okay for you. So if you come to Ivory Coast, depending on where you live in, if you live in Abidjan, it will be expensive depending on where you're coming from. If you live in another city besides Abidjan, it will be affordable. Even for Ivorian, if you are not living in Abidjan, it's affordable. But the problem here is the job you can get in Abidjan and the salary or the amount of money you can work in Abidjan and get it, you cannot get the same thing in another city. That's the flop here. So you have to choose. If you want to stay in Abidjan, get a good salary but spend more, this is your choice. Or if you want to live in another city, get like a decent salary but not as high as Abidjan, you can live there. So that's what I can answer to my fellow who asked me, is Ivory Coast expensive? Ivory Coast is expensive, yes and no. Yeah, depending on living. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you guys enjoyed this video here. By the way, I'm walking a little bit in the neighborhood here to just relax my legs. And in that case, don't forget to like this video, share and subscribe to this channel so that we can grow together. Peace out. See you in the next video.
Welcome to East Monarchs, the French boy.